Now, social distancing and lockdowns amid the COVID-19 pandemic have largely restricted us from leaving the house, meeting other people and going on the occasional date. As COVID-19 rumbles on without an end in sight, the use of matchmaking apps has increased significantly as more people look to meet and connect with someone new and perhaps find someone special during these trying times. But can love outlast this pandemic? And as dating goes online and relationships are built on virtual video dates and mobile messaging, will this change the future of dating forever? And will it be for the better? To discuss this today, we have joining us Dawoon Kang, Chief Dating Officer and co-founder of matchmaking app Coffee Meets Bagel. It's great to see you.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
Lovely to have you here. And also joining us is Sharon Yoo, a corporate language trainer who has been using matchmaking apps over the course of the pandemic. It's lovely to see you.
Hi, thanks for having me.
And we also have our very own Dr. Ali Seo, Professor of Psychology at Seongsin Women's University. It's lovely to see you again.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning. Well, let's start with you first, Dawoon. So, are you really seeing more people using matchmaking platforms during this pandemic? And has the pandemic caused any noticeable changes in your users?
Yes, there are two very interesting trends that we've been seeing since the pandemic outbreak started this year. And one is that a lot more daters are engaged with chatting with each other. We've seen anywhere from 20 to 40% increase in our chat engagement rate across some major cities globally. And we are also seeing that daters are reporting to us that they're using dating apps more. 40% of daters have told us that they are using dating apps more frequently. The second trend is the trend of slow dating. What's interesting is that COVID seems to have slowed down everything, including dating. And 64% of daters are taking longer to decide to meet someone. And they're telling us that they're being more selective when it comes to dating.
Oh, so they're being more selective, they're taking their time, which is quite the reverse of what we've been seeing in the past few years, where everything's about fast and instant and on demand, right? Well, Sharon, you've actually been using matchmaking apps for about a year. How has the dating game actually changed with the pandemic?
I am on a break a little bit, but before, up until like 2 months ago, I think there are two types of people who will have a conversation or not. So recently, I talked to my foreign friends who uses the dating apps, and we agree that the fact that there are less people who are actually willing to keep a conversation or like meet in person. So like first we are not able to go anywhere, and now people are concerned or anxious of what's happening in the future. So many people, like for at least my age people. However, there are always people out there, like though even if even like a few are willing to keep their conversations and probably dates. So I personally believe that online dating is one of the great ways to meet people, though.
Well, did you happen to meet anyone special during this time? I mean, I'd love to hear about your experience.
Yes, I had a few dates. Yes. Yeah, I had a virtual date on video call like with one person, and then actually met like a few on like offline. But I actually had to be very selective when it comes to like meet in person, because actually it forces to take time and to get to know people because of the pandemic situation. So yeah, actually I did. So it was a good experience.
So really, how do you get ready for a virtual date, Sharon?
We have to get matched firstly, and then you start talking on chat. But there are always two types of people who are willing to talk or who are just like casually chat. So in that level, like the conversation goes with the flow then, and if you find a lot in common, then you will be able to actually start talking about the video call. Then the next step is going for a virtual date through video calls. Yes.
Well, reaching that depth of conversation is indeed very hard, even in offline situations. And Dr. Seo, is it possible to build a deep connection online? And are there any significant differences between online and offline interactions, especially in terms of dating?
Sure, that's a great question. And there are many ways to interact online, including text, voicemail, exchanging pictures, video calling. And video calling can be highly personal and can be similar to offline dating. It gives you a sense of belonging and companionship and can be a substitute for peer relationships. And I think to some degree, we do have to accept that this is a new form of how young people, young adults form relationships in the technology era. And however, we have to think about the differences in terms of how heavy reliance on interactions through media and less face-to-face interactions can result in loss of important contextual information or contextual nuances that can normally be found in offline interactions. So you have to be more aware of these type of differences.
Right, and Dawoon, are there any new features or any tips you've been giving to help users to make better connections throughout the pandemic as they can't meet offline?
Yeah, one of the features that we introduced is called Date Nudge. And what it is that even before COVID, daters have had a hard time asking somebody out for a date because they're really unsure how the other person feels. They don't really know what they want to do. And now with COVID, it's become even more confusing because you don't want to come across as if you are disregarding COVID. But if you want to, you don't know if they're actually willing to meet in person. And so this new feature called Date Nudge makes asking out for a date really easy. We actually ask for you if the other person is interested in meeting up or going on a date. And if so, what kind of activity they want to do? Are they up for a video date or actually social distance meetup? And then we actually tell you that information, so it's a lot easier for you to be able to ask out more confidently. And what we found is that it's a combination of different activities, what people, daters are really engaged in as a date right now. The top number one activity was nature walk. So, understandably, people want to meet up, but they want to be respectful of, they want to remain outdoor. The second was a classic coffee date, and the third was a video chat.
Well, Sharon, you told us that you've been on a couple of virtual dates, and while building up these connections, were there particularly any sort of concerns that you had or any limitations that you felt as compared to offline dates that you went on the past?
Yes, there were limitations, of course, because as mentioned, there were people wouldn't go out. Some people went inside. Just stay inside, and some people went outside. There are actually always two different types of people. I tried not to go anywhere with a lot of people because we need to be aware of where we are now. But still, I was on a few dates for a meal or coffee. But I preferred staying home instead during this time. But, so from my view, a meeting offline eventually will be very important to see the person in real life. So that actually, it will save our time and then actually helps us to get to know each other. So we started focusing on more texting and then virtual calls. So I think, but there are limitations because we don't know up until actually meet in person, you will be able to fully understand who they are. So we intentionally try to be more specific with questions when having conversations.
And Dr. Seo, while building these online relationships, I think a genuine concern is whether the relationship is genuine, I suppose, and whether we're really getting to know that significant other or that special someone. So is there a chance that we're maybe putting on a fake persona when we interact online? The way we have a phone voice, for instance.
Sure. So if you're thinking about online dating, I think you really need to ask yourself the question whether you can really show your true self when you're interacting online. And if that's possible, maybe dating online can be a good fit. And I think for some people, it is definitely possible to kind of put on a certain image or a fake persona when interacting with people online. But research has shown that trends for popular webcasters, one of the reasons why they're so popular is because of their authenticity and because they're genuine. And I think that can kind of extend to online dating as well. It may be that a lot of people, even if it's an online relationship, they're looking for that authenticity in the other person. So I think it's really important to think about that if you're considering online dating.
Well, Tam, your app is all about authenticity, really. You say that Coffee Meets Bagel is the anti-swiping app, and it's about forming genuine relationships. So what made you come up with this concept, and in what ways are you helping build more meaningful or long-lasting connections?
Yes, and hopefully Dr. So will agree with this philosophy based on her all of the research. But we at CMB really believe that the slower dating, not the fast dating, the swiping dating is the best way to get to the type of genuine connection most daters are looking for. When you're overwhelmed with so many choices, there have been a lot of studies that have proven that it's very difficult to actually make a commitment and actually make a decision. And it shows up in a number. A lot of swipe-based dating app users who use swipe-based dating apps have reported that they spend up to like 14 hours a week swiping with very little results because they're really, really overwhelmed. And that contributes to the dating fatigue a lot of daters talk about in today's modern dating world. And if you want to actually get to know somebody and build a genuine connection, it's better to pay more attention to fewer people, which is what Coffee Meets Bagel is about. Let's focus on fewer, more quality folks who are more and better fit for you so that you can actually build a deeper relationship versus, a lot of people and being shallow.
And Dr. Seo, do you think virtual romances, do you think they're actually sustainable, and can these actually make it past what we call the honeymoon period?
Well, there's definitely no one way to sustain a relationship, regardless of whether the relationship is online or offline. And it definitely depends on who the couple is. But if you're thinking about having a 100% online relationship without any type of offline interactions, I think that can definitely pose challenges. So, for example, not having any type of context around the relationship or any type of shared physical environment can definitely spawn misunderstandings in communication. So I think if you're aware of this and cognizant of the challenges and make sure you're taking steps to overcome this, then I think they should be okay.
And Talm, do you think that online dating and the relationships that are blossoming right now over the course of the pandemic will outlast the virus, or do you think it's maybe just a temporary arrangement that we're seeing?
I think the change in this shift in the dating pattern that we're seeing among daters is definitely going to stay. And as the COVID impact sustains, the more permanent the change is going to be. I mean, I can already tell when we first started surveying our daters in the very beginning of the outbreak earlier this year, only about 12% of the daters had actually used video dating, for example. Now, when we actually did another survey about 2 weeks ago, the number had jumped to about 30%. And so more and more people are adopting this technology. And what's more interesting is that 76% of those people who actually have done video dating said they'll continue to do it even after COVID is over, because they actually are getting the power of what it's like to connect with people over video versus something that is a little bit more two-dimensional like text. It's a lot harder to actually get a feel for who the other person is when you're just relying on text, and also recipe for a lot of misunderstanding. And so I think this kind of behavioral shift is here to stay.
And Sharon, you said right now you're on a break, but when you eventually do resume virtual dating, do you think you can keep doing these online meetups, or do you think you would rather prefer to do it old school and go offline?
I think I'm on the way still adopting the culture of online dating. So of course, I think I will be able to use the online app. Just I'm on a break because, there are a lot of people actually matched, but actually there are a few people you only have a conversations with. So actually I will be using the app later on, after this break.
Oh, well, good luck to you, Sharon. And well,
Thanks.
Before we go, Dr. Seo, Would you have any advice to others out there that are ready to meet someone new and build a connection during this pandemic? And when they're disappointed, when it doesn't work out, how should we deal with that disappointment?
Well, trying to, be authentic and trying to make sure that you're putting yourself out there, I think is very important. I think the COVID-19 has definitely limited some opportunities that people normally would have had. So making sure that you're kind of putting yourself out there, I think is important. However, it is very possible that you can be disappointed. And one thing to keep in mind is that online breakups are as painful as offline breakups. So when you're dealing with the disappointment, it may be a little bit easier to get over those relationships because there's less physical environment shared and less cues to make you, to remind you of the other person. And this may be a little bit cliche, but the best way to get over someone is to make new memories and meet new people. So if online dating is the thing for you, definitely take the time to date on Coffee and Bagel. Take some time to the relationship and meet more people.
Right, well, I'm afraid this is where we'll have to end the discussion today, but it's been lovely speaking with you ladies. Thank you so much for joining the programme.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
And to our viewers, thank you for watching. Have a lovely weekend wherever you are. Goodbye.